You all are good to go. You can get started, Ben.
Okay, we're good. All right. All right. Hello. Thanks for joining this afternoon. I'm Ben Painter with the Town of Clayton in the planning department, focused on the GIS task workload in the planning department, but also involved in other development management tasks, and have been helping out with the economic development department, specifically on building this tool. I wanted to give a very sort of high level, non-technical can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. You got muted accidentally, Ben. You're good to go.
Okay, sorry about that. So just trying to keep it at a high level and just tell a story about how we used ArcGIS Online in our organization. And if you have technical questions about how I set it up that you need me to go in more detail on, I'm happy to follow up after this presentation, and I'll get my contact info at the end. So basically the purpose of building what I call the economic development inventory, which is essentially a hosted feature layer on ArcGIS Online that's served out through web maps, mobile app, and collector app, and the dashboard. We built this basically to gain an understanding of conditions downtown with our commercial properties and business retention, especially in light of the COVID-19 pandemic impacts. But on top of that, the economic development director, Patrick, was looking for something that he could use for longer term client management systems, so that he could track business retention who's coming in and out, and conversations he's had with the business community in Clayton. So a lot of client management systems are not spatially enabled. They're more spreadsheet oriented and kind of records oriented. And he wanted something that gave him a little bit of a location basis. And then beyond that, we could use this to analyze types of businesses and future opportunities for economic development in Clayton. It started with downtown, because downtown is an area of town that's really prioritized by the community right now. So we wanted to check those impacts, but since we were able to rapidly get this thing up and going on ArcGIS Online, we were able to go town-wide with it, with some additional help from interns. So built the feature layer entirely on ArcGIS Online, created it from scratch right there, and generated some fields based on a meeting with the economic development director. The fields can be added or updated as needed, and we really leveraged building domains and limiting the amount of keyed in data that would be collected to reduce errors, and especially when you're out in the field collecting mobile data, or data through a mobile device with a screen that's hard to read or a keyboard that's too small. We wanted to reduce how much you could fat finger the wrong thing in. And then after creating the layer, another thing about the feature layer is that they do take, it does take ArcGIS Online credits, but after 6 months of using this thing, and the director uses it on a daily basis, he says, to do his work, we've barely scratched the surface on the credits that we've been allotted for an organization our size. So with the layer set up, we fed it into a web map, which can then be pulled up in the collector app on a mobile device, and as well fed into a dashboard, which I'll speak more to a little bit later. So the collector app It's important to note here that something called field maps has just been released by Esri, which is supposed to take all of their mobile device apps and kind of aggregate them into one. But since we set it up through Collector, that's what we're going to go with. But it might be that Collector is not supported one day. I'm not too sure about that, but field maps is another thing that you might see as you're thinking about a certain workflow. I like Collector because you can download it just like any app store, application on your phone, and it mimics similar everyday tools. If someone's used Google Maps, they're probably going to be able to pick Collector app up pretty quickly. You log into it just like you would ArcGIS Online, but it's through an app on your phone. So between Patrick, the director, took him, an hour to download it and get a sense of how to pull things up and enter data. Similarly with the AmeriCorps intern, he was trained on it in an hour. So I really like these mobile data collection apps because it allows you to set something up in a small amount of time and send someone out with limited GIS or GPS data collection skills into the field to do all your collecting as you stand by and monitor the integrity of the data. Here's what the app interface looked like. This was on my own phone. I have an Android. So, you can add a point. This is the screen that is an update point. So once the point exists, you can click on it again in Collector and hit update point for location update. One thing that was really nice about Collector is you can take a photo and attach it to the point, which was really nice for a drive up, trying to figure out what point you're corresponding to on the ground. You can use that photo to really quickly understand that. And there's pre-populated fields as well to make data collection a little bit more simple. And if you can see where use is highlighted as an entry, we preloaded uses based on a list that the economic development director and I generated to reduce, manual entry. Setting up the web map was pretty simple as well. In ArcGIS Online, we pulled in existing data, the layer we created, as well as other layers and base maps that were available in ArcGIS Online that our organization had put before. We just sort of quickly built the map and made adjustments to it based on feedback. The director might say, can you filter out just major roads and have them labeled so that I can have some orientation for when I show clients. I know what the roads are, but they might not know. So we could just go back in and update it, and everything's automatically updated. The map that's used on Collector and the map that's used in Dashboard is all seamlessly updated at one time, which is part of the beauty of ArcGIS Online infrastructure. Instead of having a lot of copies of data or map documents floating around on a local network, you're kind of building off of everything that you've already made. And that makes it a lot faster to build stuff and a lot more streamlined. And the data integrity is good because you're not creating copy on copy, you're building off of what you've already made. We also created a public version of the web map, particularly for the dashboard, because that's going to be used to show a lot of outside clients the lay of the land, and there's certain internal conversations that the economic development director wanted to keep in the data, but in a separate view so that some confidentiality would be preserved. The dashboard, it's a lot like the web map. It is the web map, but I just brought it in and added a couple charts to give some rapid insights into the data. This is really nice, like I said, for more of a public-facing view. The director shares it with clients and can kind of allow them to see the lay of the land and look at, you know, what's the mixture of uses, where are the opportunities, you know, what's successful in town, what is there a lot of. You can ask a lot of questions of this data just by panning around the map. And some of the key findings from putting this data together was there's a high occupancy rate in the town of Clayton, despite the pandemic. We kind of thought there'd be a lot of vacant spaces or inactive commercial spaces, but seems to be that businesses are doing fairly well and adapting. There are some that have gone out, but some are still kicking and have figured out how to make it work. There are also lots of opportunity in other parts of town. Going town-wide, it kind of showed us where there's a lot of developable commercial property that's just sort of sitting there, and there's a lot of opportunity there for the town to tap into. And different districts of town have different types of employment. We saw a pretty diverse landscape of commercial and business activity through town, and realized that, you know, one side of town would be more retail oriented and another side of town might be more manufacturing or industrial, which leads into the next point, that the diversified commercial landscape of the town of Clayton might have contributed to the overall resiliency of our local economy. So it was cool to be able to actually see that. Another sort of spur of this was the data collection efforts being handled by the economic development director and the AmeriCorps intern. It kind of gave them a platform to go out and meet with business owners, and it gives them a tool for communication as well, so they can actually, it actually created a lot of relationships and connections by just through the data collection effort. They'd say, we're coming out doing an inventory of town, and that's something that maybe I could do, but obviously, you know, the economic development director and him having that tool to go out and do his own data collection was pretty powerful for that department. So we definitely want to keep leveraging ArcGIS Online resources in the town of Clayton. I think, you know, it's something that is really nice for GIS professionals, because you don't have to take on the burden of data collection and entry. You can create, you know, settings that reduce errors, and you can trust other people to do all that work for you. So we've collected over 1,200 points that didn't exist before, with all this exciting data and insights into commercial property in the town of Clayton. And I've got a big workload, so it probably would have taken me a lot longer to do that. But setting something up and then passing it to someone else who might actually be better at collecting that data because they have a better understanding of what's being collected, I think it's pretty powerful. So we definitely want to use it more in other departments too, like the planning department, tracking development, residential development. It's something we're working on right now as well. Let's see. I could take questions. Also, I could demonstrate the maps too outside of the presentation. I didn't want to try to demo something and it fall apart on me, but I can try to do that as well.
You've got 2 or 3 minutes, Ben, if you want to do that. And we have one question in the chat, so we can either take the question first or have you continue.
I can take it while I'm trying to exit out of this presentation.
Okay, so the question in the chat is, did your points take into consideration street level versus upper levels of buildings?
Yeah. So basically, if there was a multi-suite building, we would just drop, a couple points on the same building, and then there's actually you can download Collector as an app on like a desktop, which I didn't know. The development director found that out, and so he actually goes back and will do some adjustments to the data if he needs to. Like if there's 2 points sort of right on top of each other, but they're in the same building, he'll go back and space them out, and do a little bit of data clarification like that. But yeah, we accounted for, if it was a business entity, then we made a point for it. It wasn't just 1 point per building.
Okay, looks like we have another question in the chat. Have you considered using story maps and web app builder to tell your town story?
Yeah, I have looked into those as well. Story map would be interesting, I think, for this data to kind of put it into more of a story form, to give out to the general public. This is more of a client management tool and a tool for the director. Something we wanted to turn around pretty quickly. So that was part of the reason why we just stuck to these tools. So here's
okay, looks like we have one more question in the chat, and then you can continue from there. How might permits for festivals be incorporated into the web map for future economic events?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I would probably, because we do have a lot of festivals, especially downtown, and temporary businesses with pop-up tents come and set up like a vendor area. So I think you would have to have an additional attribute saying, is this a permanent or a temporary? That kind of goes along with like food trucks too. So that's a good point and something we should probably consider.
Okay, that's everything in the chat. So if there's something more you want to demonstrate, we've got 10 minutes before the session ends.
Okay. Well, 2 things about the hosted layer. Something that's really nice about this that the directors really responded to is your ability to export the data. Part of the worry was, if we just put this thing online, how can I get to it? How can I protect it? It seems like it's just floating online and it could disappear at any moment. But you can actually export the data pretty easily when you click on your layer and go to layer view. It can be exported to shapefile, CSV. One thing that they really wanted was to be able to export to Excel, because a lot of people are more comfortable manipulating and viewing data in an Excel format. So once a month, probably, I'll export the Excel and send it to Patrick as like a cached version, put a date on it as of February 1st, 2021. And that way we've got that Excel backup of the data. Here is the, oh shoot, I lost that one. Let me show you the dashboard really quickly. So this is just the web map fed directly into the dashboard. I really like these pie charts because they actually scale to the extent of your map. So like if I scale all the way out, this is the pie charts to the left, show you overall the data set. So everything in our ETJ, it's totaling up and spitting out graphs based on that. So you can see high occupancy rate at 69% townwide. And then we've also got vacant for lease, vacant not for lease, and an occupied follow-up, which is sort of like, yeah, someone's in there, but it seems like an inactive or an underutilized space. So that's like a separate category. And you can see how diversified, to the pie chart to the bottom, how diversified our overall commercial use types are. But as you scale in to a certain area, these charts will actually, well, they're supposed to adjust. I think my connection might be bad. All right, you might just have to trust me on that one. They adjust, which makes it kind of interesting to see because you can go to different parts of town and they will adjust for you. So you can see, oh, on the east side of town, we have a higher vacancy rate than the west side of town, or the uses are different there. There's more manufacturing. So that is something that usually works on my work computer, but I guess not at home. And with that, I'll just say this is the end of the session. If you have anything you want to follow up with me about, technical questions, feel free to reach out.
So we actually have a couple more questions in the chat if you've got time, Ben.
Sure.
Okay. The first one is, Ben, I was wondering if Clayton's efforts are mostly concentrating on recruiting new businesses or building new residential units.
That's it. I mean, I don't know that there's a priority one or the other. I think it would depend on the department you talk to. They kind of go hand in hand. You know, you want to attract future residents through providing additional businesses and job centers, but you can't necessarily support the job centers and the businesses without future residents. So I guess they're both a priority, but it is a hard balance to strike between the two.
Yep, that's for sure. The final question in the chat is, does Clayton use GIS for other purposes currently, such as asset management?
Yeah, that we leverage a lot of resources for asset management, and that's tied into CityWorks. And so we're doing a lot of that. And that I started as a GIS technician in public services, and so I was much more involved in utilizing some of our GIS infrastructure for that. But now that's currently Michael Tutwiler. He's the GIS coordinator, and he's been helping me to set up the back end of this ArcGIS Online as well. But yeah, we do quite a bit with our asset management and GIS.
Very good. Well, I don't see anything else in the chat other than some comments. Great job, Ben, and I would echo that. Great work down there in Clayton. So with that, we'll conclude the session. Rest assured, all of these sessions will be recorded and they'll be available through the YouTube channel for the North Carolina GIS Conference after the conference is over. There's a session to follow this one at 2 p.m. So enjoy the rest of the day and the rest of the conference. And thanks again, Ben.
Thanks, everybody.